Hey, welcome everyone. As you're coming in, if you are a veteran, you know that I love to have your microphone off unless you're unmuting to speak. I love it if your camera can be on at all possible, just because we love seeing your smiling faces. Gives us so much energy, makes the virtual presentation so much easier. And if you have advanced or even intermediate Zoom skills, rename yourself. So you put like your organization name after your name. Varner is telling us he's from MITRE as an example. Evan, of course, is from LeadX. It just helps us to know who we are chatting with. Good to see so many friends on this Friday. We never know the right date and time. As I was saying to Kim, we've got some Vivaldi spring playing, maybe about a week early, but trying to get us all in the mood. We've had a little bit warmer weather the last few days here in Philadelphia, so I'm feeling really good. And those of you know how to play along, warm up your fingers because we like to keep it going in the chat. We like this to be a mastermind. Read any good novels lately? And not many of us are reading novels the way we used to, right? I mean, we got TikTok, we got Netflix. I've got a bazillion business books from all my business author friends that I'm always trying to read and help out with. So yeah, let me know what you're reading. I could use some new ones. Kira's saying The Women, Kristen Hanna, and then rewatching Ken Burns. Okay, this is known. I didn't know it. Seven Eves, Mel Gibbons. Hey, Dwayne Best, what are you reading these days? I know usually you and I are reading some inspirational stuff, some nonfiction. You ever go into fiction?
You know what? Not too much, honestly. You know what? Oddly enough, I used to be a big Grisham fan, so I used to read
Yeah,
a lot of Grisham back in the day, and Sue Grafton.
sure.
But now I'm reading stuff like Smart Brevity and all these other things, things of that nature.
Also good, also good. I did this thing where I was down in Key West between Christmas and New Year's and visited Hemingway's house for, I don't know, I've been there 6 times. But I got on this idea to start reading authors from like their first novel to their last, like a whole marathon. And
Yeah.
Hemingway's so easy. So it helps me to get my steps in. So now I'm listening to Hemingway, getting
Okay.
10, 12,000 steps a day. I'm about halfway through his novels, which isn't bad for being in March. So that's
Yeah.
been what I've been reading lately.
So what are some when you take a look at their work and their journeys, what have you noticed, like the evolution of them as a person and as a writer? That's fascinating.
I'm not that good, Dwayne. I'm not that good. But you know what? Like and I love reading. I love writing, of course. But I will tell you, ChatGPT and Claude have been my literary companions. You just talk to them about, and I literally have done this. What did the last line mean in
Oh,
uh
wow.
in The Sun Also Rises?
Oh.
Why did he call it Farewell to Arms instead of something else? And it's pretty good. It's like having a great lit professor right by your elbow. I love it. I love
Oh,
it.
I've never used it that way. As a talking companion. That's
Hey,
pretty cool.
talking companion. We got to make sure we keep the humans in our lives, but where it's going. Hey, let me get everyone caught up on the agenda. So again, if this is your first time, and this would be one of our quarterly kind of VIP and client meetings where we bring in a favorite author and special guest or two. If you don't know who I am, I'm Kevin Cruz. I'm the founder, CEO of LeadX. This is our community of practice for leadership development professionals. So you don't have to be a client of LeadX to attend. And we purposely exclude coaches and consultants and vendors, and we ourselves stay out of the breakout rooms just so you can have an honest conversation among peers about what's going on and resources. That's really the only ad you'll get from us, other than some free EQ stuff that I'm going to chat about in a minute. But super excited today. Someone who just warms my heart and fires off my mind. We've got a special author today that we're going to be chatting with and celebrating her book. And then we were just talking last month about how AI, for the first time in years, has made the top 10 training list for leadership development. And I have another friend to tell us about a brand new role that just got created at GE Healthcare and whether this is a trend in our industry or not. You know that I'm a big believer in social capital networking. So we want to fit in that quick breakout so you can make some new LinkedIn friends. Dig your well before you're thirsty. Make your friends before you need to lean on them as peers. So we're going to do a quick breakout. And then we're going to, time permitting, we're going to end with our top 5 plays of the month, which are just little research tidbits that you might have missed over the last month or two. And of course, as always, my better looking and funnier partner, Dwayne Bess. Dwayne, thanks again for coming and joining us.
Thank you, my friend.
Hey, it feels like I think we did last month's meeting later than normal, so it hasn't been that many weeks. But once again, we haven't done a good job of being in touch. Anything fun going on in your world? You got any MMA refereeing going on or anything?
Yeah, actually, next week I'm refereeing some fights, but this weekend it's dedicated to volleyball. So I'm at volleyball south of Chicago, so I'll be there all week. And last week it was all volleyball. So who
Is
would have
this
thought?
is this kids? Are you playing? Like, what are you talking about? This is new to me.
My daughter. So my 12-year-old, she plays club, then my 14-year-old plays club, and then my wife plays competitive tennis. So my butt looks like the bottom of a bleacher because all
Oh my
weekend
God.
I'm watching everyone but myself.
You got a competitive family as well, it sounds like.
You know what? We do have a family Olympics, and I bring home some of the goals. That's all I'm saying.
If they get too sassy, you just put it in the octagon, right? And then
There you go.
let's
There you
go.
go. Keep 'em honest. What about you? What's going on in your world?
Uh, Dwayne, this is like embarrassing. I've been fighting this cold, this sinus thing for like 2 months, so I apologize in advance, everyone, if I go off camera to sneeze and cough and all this other stuff. Dwayne, I tried to, I'm trying to get big and ripped like you. And 2 weeks ago, I was doing lateral raises throughout my back. And so now I'm doing these crazy, every hour I'm doing Cobra pose on the ground. I'm a complete mess over here, Dwayne. I mean, I know you got a couple decades to go, but when you get to 57, it's a whole different story. It's a whole different story. I'm not happy with where I'm at, but I'm working on it. I'm
I
working on
must say this is the first
it.
time that I've heard someone throw out their back because of lateral raises.
I know.
So
I
you're a
know.
first. You're a first, my friend.
Weak thoracic middle back muscles is the problem. We got to work on those stabilizer muscles as we get older.
I understand that. Functional movement. There's a lot of work that's actually strength training, that's functional movement based, that's so just good for you. Believe it or not, something I love that just makes me, it just humbles me, Pilates.
Yeah, I got to take it up. I got to take it
Oh,
up, I think.
I am humbled every time I do a Pilates class. Like, it's insane.
That is insane. Dwayne, before we get to our author, we like to do a little bit of a soft sell in the way of giving away free things. And
Mm.
I want to remind everyone, now, many of you who were on last month saw that Dr. Travis Bradbury has his new book coming out, his new EQ book coming out. Now, if you were on the show last month, you'll know that, he's famous for his Emotional Intelligence 2.0 book. And a month ago, this slide said Emotional Intelligence 3.0 was his new book. However, late breaking news, apparently the private equity folks at Talent Smart let their lawyers know that they didn't like that title very much. And because
Oh,
Dr. Bradbury likes surfing more than hanging out with legal people, he's like, no problem. I'm going to call it the new emotional intelligence. So last month, if you took his EI 3.0 assessment, on with LeadX, you're still getting a new copy of the book, but it just has a new cover. Same book, same assessment, same great stuff, just has a new cover. New strategies, brand new assessment, launches May 6th. And that, of course, goes along with our new LeadX EQ program. Travis says, this program, it's the only one that he's recommending because all participants get 12 weeks of executive coaching when the program's done. We offer unlimited free retests so you can track your progress over time. And it's the only program now that's using Dr. Bradbury's work. So free comes in this way. First of all, if any of you have already been certified in Talent Smart EQ, Blue EQ, MHS EQ, other EQ systems, we want you to go through certification at no charge. So if you want to see what all the hype's about, why people are switching, why should you have to pay again, when you've already been certified in another system? So we will waive that certification fee. just let Evan know, Evan at leadx.org, or drop it in a chat or DM and follow up. And if you're not already certified but want to check it out, we're doing like 1 hour taster workshops almost every month: April, May, June, July. So these are 1 hour long. It's the real deal. You get the assessment, no cost for you or your L&D colleagues. So if you have someone on your team that you're not right for this, but they are, let us know. Hit evan at leadx.org and we will hook you up for that for free. Am I missing anything, Dwayne?
Sounds great to me, my man.
All right. All right. So let's get into it. I am so excited. Now, this is pretty crazy. You might think you know this author and you know of her, but did you know she once started a diamond cutting factory in Moscow? Did you know that she managed a pediatric clinic in Kosovo? I think she's like an international spy or something. We know of her from her superstar tech career, led different teams at Google. She was, of course, legendary member of the faculty at Apple University, a CEO coach to Dropbox, Qualtrics, Twitter, and we kind of know her really well from her first book, Radical Candor. We're here today to celebrate her other business bestseller, Radical Respect. Please welcome Kim Scott.
Thank
Kim,
you. Love being here. Really
Kim, this is
excited.
great. I'm going to leave the slides up because I'm going to show a couple other things, Kim.
Okay.
Um, my heart warms. You know, we chat once or twice a year or whatever. Just big fan of your work. But we like to know everybody as part of our family. Tell everyone, like, where are you coming from today? Where's home for you?
I'm in Los Altos, California, right between San Francisco and San Jose for folks who aren't familiar. And, my kids are off at school. They just turned 16. So if you're in the area, practice your defensive driving. They're out on the streets in the wild.
They're out in the wild. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a special time of parenting, isn't it?
Yes, it is. My husband and I are a little white knuckled these days.
I remember, I've got three, they're out of the house now, but I remember when they all could drive and it was like relief that I'm no longer the taxi or Uber driver, and fear that,
Yeah.
like, okay, what are they doing out there, right?
Exactly. There's like, you got to pick your poison. There's one kind of stress or another. So I've left one kind and now I'm in another world of stress.
Now, Kim, I had the warm-up question kind of on purpose, knowing that you were going to
Yeah.
be on. Have you been reading any good literature, any novels lately?
Well, I actually think that reading novels is one of the most important things that leaders can do in order to develop their emotional intelligence, in order to build compassion for other people. Reading a novel is one of the few ways that you can get inside another human being's brain. And really experience life truly from another person's, even if it's a fictional person's perspective. One of the books that I read recently is The Seven Eves, which is kind of a science fiction book, which is fascinating. And it seems relevant. There's a line in that book. This is the other reason I read. There's always some thing that makes me figure out like how to live and why, a little better. And in this book, the idea is, it starts out, and the moon has blown up. Something has blown the moon up. And it feels a little bit like in our world the moon has blown up, frankly. And there's a scientist who's spending a bunch of time trying to figure out why the moon blew up. And he has this sudden epiphany and he realizes that he's asking the wrong question. The
Mm,
question he ought to be asking is, what happens next? And what
mhm.
am I going to do about it? So that's what I took from that book.
I love it. I'll add it to my list. I'll interrupt my Hemingway series to
No, no, no.
to
Don't
read
interrupt Hemingway. Hemingway is so great.
it. In a minute, Kim, we're going to talk about radical respect, and I want to remind everyone that's here that you are all getting a free copy of this book. So this is really, so you're all going to read it. This isn't about trying to get you to buy it. We're going to send it to you for free. And if you need to update your address or you weren't sure the last time you gave us your address, Debbie at leadx.org or Evan at leadx.org. We'll make it happen. But Kim, I do want to dial it back. You obviously you really landed and made a splash with Radical Candor.
Hmm.
And refresh my memory because I think it's relevant. You told me once that sort of the origin of that whole thing was you created a feedback workshop basically at Apple. Is that right?
So when I was at Apple, I taught this class called Managing at Apple. And even though I'd never managed at Apple, I managed giant teams at Google. But anyway, that class was it was really fun to have the time and the space, and I'm grateful to Apple for giving me this. They said design this class and you get 5 months to design this class, how to manage at Apple. And if I had been at Google and designing managing at Google, I would have designed it in 6 hours, you know. So it was really useful to have the time and space to think about it. And then a colleague of mine from Google became the CEO of Twitter, and he said, Dick Costello, and he said, "Why don't you help me design managing at Twitter?" And of course, it was the exact same thing as managing at Apple. And that was sort of when I realized that management, like the core things that managers are responsible for doing, is pretty universal. It's not unique, you know, it's not different in tech than in any other sector, and it certainly isn't different at Twitter than it was at Apple. Like it's about feedback, it's about building great teams, it's about getting great results. And sort of how you do that is by building radically candid relationships with people.
And you mentioned when Dick became CEO at Twitter, but I think you told me that, I mean, Steve Jobs personally had an issue with management training at
Yeah,
Apple as well. Like,
yes.
so you had CEO attention and support
Yeah.
in each case. Is that right?
Yeah, he had Steve Jobs had decided that the management training that they had developed at Apple sucked, and he wanted to throw it away and start from a blank piece of paper, and that was part of what Apple University was doing. And I want to be fair to the people who had designed the other management training. It didn't exactly suck, but I think that one of the it training is really teaching is hard, you know, and and very often when you have been an operating executive, you have no experience teaching, right?
Mhm,
And then
mhm.
you try to do it, and you know you don't do it that well. And so one of the things that Steve did was he brought in some academics who had taught. He brought in the dean of Yale School of Management. He brought in my favorite professor from Harvard Business School, which was actually how I wound up at Apple.
Hmm.
So he merged sort of people who had experience teaching and people who had experience managing things.
I don't want to derail us too much, Kim, but you know, you mentioned your work at Twitter, Dick Costello, and so you there's a lot of things I should be jealous of you about, you know, your best-selling books and your speeches and all that stuff. I'm just happy for you, but there's one thing I'm really envious. It's that your work was parodied on Silicon Valley. And I know Dick advised for that show, so it probably
Yes.
is where it came from.
Yeah, I think so. That the a bunch of people from that show came to Twitter one time, and I made the mistake of giving them my book. uh,
Yes, they really minimalized the radical candor concept in that
well,
episode.
they were talking about obnoxious aggression and manipulative insincerity, you know, because that's where the drama is. Those are the fun mistakes to talk about. It's not as much fun to do an episode on getting things right. So
So let's switch over. From the beginning, why radical respect? I thought it was interesting. Right in the preface of that book, you sort of shared an aha you had with, I
yeah,
think you called her Michelle, not her real name,
yes,
right? Uh,
yes,
uh, who gave you some feedback
yeah,
about when she gives feedback.
yes.
Maybe start there.
Yeah, yeah. You know, if you write a book about feedback, you're going to get a lot of it. And indeed, I did. And hands down, the most helpful feedback I got came from Michelle. I was giving a radical candor talk at her company. She had been previously to becoming the CEO of this company. She and I had been colleagues for the better part of a decade. She's a person I like and respect enormously. So I was really excited to talk to her team. And when I finished talking with them, she pulled me aside and she said, Kim, I'm excited to roll out Radical Candor. I think it's going to help me build the kind of innovative culture that I want. But I got to tell you, it's much harder for me than it is for you. And I asked her why. And she went on to explain to me that as soon as she would offer people even the most gentle, compassionate criticism, they would accuse her of being an angry Black woman. And it was so hard to hear, so painful, in part because I knew it was true. I knew this had happened to her. And I knew how unfair it was. She's objectively, from my perspective, one of the most cheerful, reasonable people I'd ever worked with. And as soon as she said this to me, I had four different realizations at the same time. The first thing that I realized was that even though I think of myself as an upstander, a person who would intervene if someone is experiencing that kind of disrespect, I didn't say or do anything. It never even occurred to me the toll it must take on her to have to show up unfailingly cheerful and pleasant in every meeting we were ever in together. And that was not the right thing for me to have done and not how I think of myself. So I had sort of failed to be an upstander who intervened. Instead, I'd been kind of the silent bystander. The second thing that I realized when she told me this is that not only had I been in denial about the kinds of things that the kind of disrespect she was experiencing, I was also in denial about the kinds of disrespect I had experienced in the course of my career. And I think I was in denial because I never wanted to think of myself or of her as victims. But by pretending that a whole host of things were not happening that were in fact happening, I was not choosing my battles. I was defaulting to silence. Again, not how you would expect the author of a book called Radical Candor to respond to this kind of situation. And the third thing that I realized, this is a lot of realizations as a result of this feedback, but the third thing that I realized was that even less than wanting to think of myself as a victim, did I want to think of myself as a culprit. So I realized I was most in denial about the times when I was the one who had been disrespectful to my colleagues, making it harder than it needed for them to get their job done. And because I was pretending that I had done nothing wrong, I couldn't acknowledge what I had done wrong or make amends. I was just sort of ignoring it. Again, I was not soliciting feedback. We'll put it that way. And last but not least, the fourth thing I realized was that as a leader, I imagined myself to be this person who's creating these BS-free zones where everybody can do the best work of their life and build the best relationships of their career. But because I was pretending that these disrespectful attitudes and behaviors just weren't happening. I mean, surely if I'm in charge, none of this BS will happen. Well, guess what? I'm in charge and that BS is happening and I'm pretending like it's not, which is not an uncommon mistake for leaders to make. And so I was failing in my responsibility to prevent these things from getting in my team's way of getting good work done. So that's when I realized I needed to sit down and to write another book, which is really the prequel to Radical Candor. Because if you don't respect people, you're not going to care about them and you're not going to challenge them.
And Kim, I think for those who haven't read the book yet, but will when they get it, look, I love Radical Candor, and I really love the model and the language it gave everybody. This book is actually written, I feel like a whole nother level of engaging because of some of the authenticity and storytelling that you just started to do. First of all, I was horrified at all the personal stories you experienced. I won't even get into them. It's just, I'm like, men are really still like that? Like, this is insane.
So I think I'm glad you said that, but most men are not like that.
Oh, that's good to know.
And I think this is really important. But as I was writing the book, like my husband's jaw would be on the floor.
Yeah.
Like I can't, it was on the door. His jaw was on the floor for a couple of reasons. One, he couldn't believe it, but two, like why hadn't I told him? And he wasn't asking that in an accusatory way, but just like why didn't I tell him all this stuff was happening? I mean, some of the stuff he knew. And I think the important thing is, like, this was part of me being in denial. Like, it was hard for me to even admit to myself what was happening. And the other thing is that uh, I, I didn't want to make him uncomfortable, you know?
Mm,
And I realized I got to get past that because he would never do these things and they would never happen to him. So how would he possibly know that
yeah.
they were going on if I didn't tell him? And that was really like part of what gave me the fuel to keep writing this book is it was important
Well,
for him to know.
of course, for all of us, and I think that's one level, a very high level of vulnerability. And then equally, though, is when you share stories of when you were not showing up at your best
Yeah.
in these areas that you're now teaching us about, which is
Yeah.
hard for a lot. We're all supposed to be the gurus and the experts and
Yeah.
the all these things. And so I think that uh, people are going to just like it's not a small book. It is a page turner. It is a page
Yeah.
turner. Now, Kim, let me ask again, going back to the model. So you've joked yourself about like you love a good two
A
by
good
two.
2x2. Yeah.
So so I do want to bring this up. Walk us through this basic framework here.
Yeah, yeah. So before I jump into the framework, I wanna offer a definition of respect because I think respect has two very different definitions, and I think it's important to distinguish between them. One of the definitions is admiration for someone elicited by their abilities or achievements. That's not what I'm talking about. Actually, I'm talking about the second definition. The second definition is unconditional regard for the feelings, rights, traditions of others. And it's that kind of unconditional regard that I'm really talking about. And we all, I think, expect as leaders that we are creating these cultures of radical respect. I mean, I've never met a single leader who says, I want to create a coercive work environment. I mean, those leaders are out there, but I've never met
Mhm.
them. I try to avoid them. Nobody on this call woke up this morning and said, I want to create a coercive work environment. I think we know that collaboration is what's going to unleash our team's ability to do its best work. So why would we go the wrong way? I think we also all woke up this morning expecting that others would respect us in our for who we are, respect our individuality. And I don't think anybody on this call woke up and said, "What I really want to do is create a dystopic 1984 style." There's another novel to read. 1984 style, everybody's marching in lockstep kind of work environment. So I don't think anyone on this call is intending to demand conformity on their teams. And yet so often, as with radical candor, like we go the wrong way on these different dimensions. So there are times when we do demand conformity, even though we've created this collaborative work environment. And that's what I call oblivious exclusion. An example of this happened. I was coaching an executive, and he noticed that he didn't have any women on his team. And to his credit, he figured this was a problem with his promotion process, not with the women at the company. And so he invited me in to observe the promotion process. And there were two people up for promotion, a man and a woman. They both were beloved leaders, and they were both running big businesses. Her business was a little bit bigger; it was growing a little bit faster, and she had slightly fewer people, so it was a little more profitable. But that may have been a function more of the product than her leadership. So it was good to have this discussion about which one of these two people should be promoted. And they were talking, the team was talking, and one person said, "This guy, he's a real leader." And another person said, "Yeah, this woman, she's a great mother hen." And I'm like, "All right, back the train up, guys." And at first they were a little defensive. They're like, "Oh, we didn't mean it. It doesn't matter." But I'm like, get real. Who are you going to promote? The mother hen or the great leader?
Yeah.
Let's words matter. So that's an example of how sort of unconscious bias creeps into how we make decisions about who gets promoted, who gets hired, how much we pay people, etc. So that's an example of oblivious exclusion. There are other times when we are aware of not demanding conformity. We are trying to encourage everyone to respect individuality, and we try to do that by forcing them to do it. And
Mm.
that's what I call self-righteous shaming. And I think we've all seen plenty of examples of self-righteous shaming. But I'll give you one that someone told me about as I was writing a book that was sort of painful. Someone was planning an offsite, and the person who was planning an offsite suggested a powwow, and everybody started
Mm.
attacking this person for not being respectful of Native American culture. Well, what they didn't know is that this person was Native American
Mm.
and was trying to share his culture with the team. But everybody made this assumption, So I think we need to make sure that we're asking questions and that we're encouraging people to respect individuality. I think there's tolerance is a complicated word, but some people say our organization has zero tolerance for, and usually it's for some bad behavior, but it's dangerous. We need to make sure that we're also investigating. So those are some examples of self-righteous shaming. And then brutal ineffectiveness, or brutal incompetence, I sometimes like to
Mm.
call it, is what happens where we're neither respecting individuality nor optimizing for collaboration. And that's like Harvey Weinstein kind of
Mm.
territory there.
Kim, with your training work and your assessments, I mean, do you have any insights or data as to take the average, I don't know, mid-market tech company or something, like what percentage of leaders are falling, or cultures are fall, or teams are falling into these areas? Like I would have to hope that the lower left is rare. Like I would have to
Yeah,
hope that's 10-20%, right?
but less, I think.
Even less.
Well, I don't, it's interesting that, so it's complicated. It's complicated to say this. Uh, because the problem is that brutal ineffectiveness causes so much harm, so
Mm.
much harm. So like the number of times I've been sexually assaulted at work is far smaller than the number of times I've experienced unconscious bias at work.
Hmm.
But on the other hand, I will say that unconscious bias becomes almost like a repetitive stress injury, which is a big deal,
Yeah.
so it's hard to say. Yes, it's rare and it exists, and when it happens it causes enormous harm, so it's important to pay attention to it. But I think oblivious exclusion is the most common thing that happens.
Okay, most common.
Yeah.
Hey, Kim, I have a quick question for you. You got me thinking here. When I think of brutal ineffectiveness, is it possible that I see this taking place possibly when you have an organization that has maybe been underperforming for a while and now someone's coming in, they're demanding conformity, they're going to just force you to do it and not take into account even the competence of the people that they actually need to actually do the work. They're just going to force this triangle and a square hole. Do you see it happening more common in those areas?
No, I think that what you're talking about is someone who comes in and has to create change because there's a team who hasn't been held accountable.
Mhm.
And often that team is going to resist, and it
Right.
takes a certain amount uh, of radical candor to fix that problem. And
Mhm.
often people will complain that, this is, but that's not what I'm talking about when I talk about brutal incompetence. Is it's the problem with a super tyrannical dictatorial
Mm.
leadership style
Mhm.
that doesn't get the best out of people,
Mhm.
that maybe allows that tyrannical leader to get away with what they're doing for some period of time, so it benefits that leader in some way, shape, or form, but it does not get good results, and in the end it fails. I mean, tyranny does fail in the long run, but in the short run and the medium run it creates enormous pain for everybody around it. That's really what I'm talking about. But like Harvey
Mhm.
Weinstein, there was a colleague of mine who was doing work in a country with a dictator, and he landed at the airport and everything was in disarray, as often happens over time with in a tyrannical sort of culture. And the dictator was stamping his foot, yelling, you know, the infrastructure is not responding, but that did not make it respond. That's what I that's another example of brutal incompetence.
Thanks for the color there.
Yeah.
And Kim, I know we just kind of ran over time, but I also wanted to, and people will see this in the book. Not only is
Yeah.
there the 2x2s and the great coaching throughout and the stories, you are able to simplify so
Yeah.
much of the stuff that so many other books have been written about, so many other courses that are out there. And like this was, and again, you go deep into each of these, but I wanted to share this and let you sort of present it because it's like, wow, if I had a cheat sheet, like this is
Yeah.
it to carry around, right?
Yes. Yeah. I hope so. That's what I was hoping for this. So I think very often when we think about what gets in the way of radical respect, a million things do, but I boil it down to three: bias, prejudice, and bullying. And I think one of the problems here is that we often conflate these three things as though they're the same thing, and then the problem can seem insoluble. And so I try to break it down into their component parts. Bias is not meaning it. I'm talking about unconscious bias. And you want to respond with an I statement, which sort of holds up a mirror. It's a gentle, you know, I don't think you meant that the way it sounded, kind of response to help a person become aware of the implications of what they're saying and doing, and they'll usually knock it off. They don't mean it. However, if it's prejudice, holding up a mirror is not going to work. The person's going to grin in that mirror. They're going to smile. They're going to like what they see. Yeah, aren't I good looking? And so if it's prejudice, you want an it statement. An it statement kind of draws a line between one person's freedom to believe whatever they want, but they can't say or do whatever they want. They can't impose those beliefs on others. And an it statement can appeal to a law, it can appeal to an HR policy, or it can appeal to common sense. You know, it is ridiculous to, or it's an HR violation to, or it's illegal to. And there are, in most companies and on most teams, some kind of rules of the road, like what you can say or do and cannot say or do. And last but not least, bullying. Bullying is not about a belief, conscious or unconscious. It's just about being mean, right? And to respond to bullying, you want a you statement, because you want to sort of, an I statement invites that person in to understand things from your perspective. It brings them closer. If it's bullying, you want to push them away. I learned this from my daughter. She was in third grade. She was getting bullied, and I was encouraging her to use an I statement. Tell this kid, I feel sad when you blah, 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 blah. And she banged her fist on the table, rolled her eyes, and she said, Mom, they're trying to make me feel sad. Why would I tell them they succeeded? I'm like, oh, that's a really good point. So they want to use it. You know, you can't talk to me like that. Or what's going on for you here? Or even sort of a you non sequitur, like, where'd you get that shirt? The point is, you're in an active role. Whatever they dished out at you, you're just not even going to pick it up. You're going to let it drop on the floor.
Kim, that was one of my favorite chuckle out loud stories about your daughter there because I could hear my own
Yes.
years ago teen daughters doing the same kind of thing about bullying.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, can I share a new version of this slide for folks?
Oh, please.
There have been some people who've asked for versions of this slide that don't use the words bias, prejudice, and bullying.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, a lot of
Yes.
there's some stuff happening that causes that. So here's a different version of the 2x2. And so when we think about another way to say what gets in the way instead of bias, prejudice, and bullying, I'm calling it unintended offenses. And I want your all's feedback on this. Unintended offenses, intolerant beliefs, and obnoxious aggression. And then you have the same definitions. So feel free to grab that if that works better where you're working.
People put in the chat at least like what do you think about some of the new labels? And
yeah, no, I'd love to know your thoughts. I'll leave it up for a second.
And Kim, I'm gonna you're over time, but
Okay.
I'm still rolling with you
Okay.
till
Sorry.
you hit the off button here. So you open the door to this. Like it feels like crazy times. I mean, it was just a couple of years ago. We
Yeah.
were on this kind of a call. We were looking at LeadX data showing that DEIB initiatives were the second most focused on training efforts. Dwayne and I were talking about it. We saw it drop the year after that, and it
Yeah.
completely dropped off top 10. SHRM has come out
Yeah.
against the limit, et cetera, et cetera. Like,
Yeah.
what is your take? What is your take?
Here's my take. I think that a lot of what happened was in psychology. There's this notion of inflicted insight, and that is a term that this is like an extreme way. So feel free to push back. But here I'm gonna go out on a limb and say what I really think. So inflicted insight was a term that was coined after the Zimbardo prison experiment, and that one of the moral qualms that people had about that experiment was it showed people that they might actually be capable of doing something that was that was like ran counter to their, and I think that between Me Too and Black Lives Matter, a lot of people kind of felt like they had some inflicted insight. They didn't want to know about this
Mm.
stuff. And you know, the here's my reinterpretation of the Oedipus trilogy. It's not about marrying your mother and murdering your father. It's about like gouging your eyes out when you realize what you've done wrong. And so I think we've retreated into a sense of denial, a real sense of denial. I think that's part of what's going on. And I think we just, so it felt a little bit to me like, you know, I'm spitting into the wind launching this book in this moment, but there are times in life when you just got to keep spitting into the wind. So spit I will. But so that's part of what happened. I think the other part of what happened is a little more gentler, kinder explanation, which is that, you know, if you're going to write about inclusion, you want to be inclusive. And after I wrote, actually, somebody asked earlier if I read Just Work. Radical Respect is the paperback version of Just Work. And after Just Work came out, I got a lot of feedback about the book. And some of it was people not communicating in good faith, but others of it was legitimate feedback where they felt like I was using words that felt too jargony. They didn't understand what they meant. They felt like this book was not for them because of the language I was using. So I tried to, when I rewrote it, I tried to rewrite it in a way that would be more inclusive, that would help everyone notice, because we all, there's nobody in the world who hasn't sometimes felt disrespected and there's nobody in the world who hasn't sometimes been disrespectful. And there's no one in the world who hasn't observed disrespect, and there's no leader in the world who has a perfectly respectful team. So I think we all have a role to play in noticing this problem and addressing it.
Kim, I'm going to, again, you've been generous with your time. I'm going to go back to sharing on
Okay,
one new slide.
there's my novels.
So, not only do we maybe, a lot of people might not have known about your early career stuff, we've been talking about novels. I want to make sure everyone knows about the work of Kim Malone Scott as well. Two of your novels. Tell us what each novel's about. I want to encourage people to snap them on their phone and then go out and buy them in, print or Kindle when this call is done.
Yes, you may not be able to buy them in print. So these are my unpublished novels, which I self-publish, so you can get them, I think, only on Amazon. I'll have to,
Amazon.com.
yeah, I'll have to add some other channels. But the measurement problem is it's a light-hearted critique of capitalism. It's about how capitalism is really good at rewarding what we can measure, but really bad at rewarding what we value. This feels very relevant to this moment. But I explore this idea not in a nonfiction way, but by writing about a woman who is stuck in a love triangle. She's living in Moscow. Who else lived in Moscow in 1990? And she's fallen in love with two people at the same time. One is a Russian entrepreneur, and the other is an American delivering humanitarian aid. So that's the measurement problem. Virtual Love is really about how I applied what I was learning about how to be a better boss when I was working at Google to my love life. And it's not. I mean, it's a fiction, so it's not me. But of course, it's my fiction, so it's not me either. But it's about a woman who takes a new job at Google and what she learns, how the things that she's learned about radical candor help her get out of a bad romance and into a happy relationship. And indeed, that happened to me at Google. I met my husband and we're married. And when I started, I was in a disastrous bad romance. So there you go.
In Radical Respect, you do talk about the fact that the do's and don'ts of office romances, if they're gonna be there.
Yeah,
It is
well,
a fact of life.
I met him before he worked at Google, and I introduced him to his team at Google, and I recused myself explicitly from the hiring process. But I did say that it was a pretty damn good sign about him that I was dating him.
Indeed, it is. Kim, thank you so much for the time today. Congratulations on the book, and we hope to chat with you in this forum again in the future.
Thanks so much. Really enjoyed the conversation, as always. Be well.
Talk to you later. Bye, Kim. Thanks.
Bye bye.
Dwayne, that was pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, it was. I love the thinking and how she kind of almost went back. She saw a problem and a gap that existed to even get to radical candor and said, let's give you the blueprint to even get there, and that's radical respect. So I
Yeah.
love how it's kind of rooted in almost like this grace of understanding. And she said in the beginning, she goes, you have to love people enough to respect them. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, a lot of great knowledge bombs, wisdom bombs in that segment. And of course, I could just geek out and chat with her for so long. There were so many ways this could go. And what's fascinating to me about Kim and her work is, there's a lot of big name gurus out there who don't really have any experience or research basis in what they do. They sort of it's inspirational or it's fortune cookie wisdom, and that's often what gets the likes and the shares on social media and all that kind of stuff. Kim has worked, has a considerable executive experience herself, has up close insights in the way CEOs think and the demands on them and everything else. And she comes from a training and learning, perspective. It's rare. I mean, I don't even know who else really has been able to come at the coaching, the experience, and the learning approach. So that's why I just think her books are so powerful, and I look forward to reading her fiction as well.
Are you gonna read the one on love?
I'm gonna read them both. I read everything, my friend. I need all the love books, fiction and nonfiction I can get. Let me tell you.
There you go. There you go.
All right, so here we are. So buckle up. So Dwayne, you remember last month, it was interesting because in our top 10 priority list, we saw DEIB drop off, and we just talked a little bit about that, including the requirements that we have to maybe change the language, and instead of having a special department or special class, it kind of just gets woven into everything we do. And then what made the list was AI. And last month we're like, is this a leadership development thing? Like, who should own this thing? And so today I'm going to go ahead and advance and read them on. He has spent a decade as a learning leader at GE Healthcare, jumped out to Zimmer Biomet for 6 years, and then boomeranged back to GE Healthcare for the last 3 years. He's long been a technologist, innovator, dove in deep on AI. He's written for L&D publications, including L10 Focus. He's spoken at various conferences. And what I think is so interesting, his new role, Global Leadership Development Leader for Gen AI and Digital. Please welcome Kevin, another great Kevin Clemence.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the warm introduction and the ability to share something I'm very passionate about. I am really excited to be speaking with all of you today. I'm 6 weeks currently into this new global role with GE Healthcare, and I feel like I'm starting to connect the dots and be able to answer some of the baseline questions around what is it specifically we're trying to do here at GE Healthcare. As Kevin mentioned in my intro, I've spent quite a bit of time in my industry supporting learning and development across a wide variety of functions, which I personally love because it helps me to better navigate our matrix organization. But at the end of the day, what I've always been most passionate about is that technology and innovation that drives adult learning and makes it effective. So with that being said, I'd say it was about 3 years ago, generative AI starts hitting the scene. And all of a sudden I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is more than just a fancy parlor trick. This is transformational. This is going to completely change the way we all think about work. And I'm also very, very excited because GE Healthcare and the executive leadership team here as well tends to agree with me. They have set out a fantastic mission statement for us all to get behind, which is focused completely on delivering a future where healthcare has no limits. And what they're beginning to realize is there's some really important questions around AI that need to be asked in order for us to be able to achieve that lofty goal. So just want to lay a little bit of groundwork.
Yeah, Kevin,
here.
let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt you a second. So what I want us to do, I want you to share some slides, get us a baseline. I'm an interrupter, so I might interrupt you even while you're presenting. And I want to encourage everyone to type, questions in the chat. You'll answer anything, and we'll chop it up after your slides. And people can come off mic and talk to you. I think this is a fascinating area. So walk us through it, but then we're going to give everyone a chance to engage with you directly. Does that make sense?
Completely makes sense, and I'm looking forward to it.
Let's do it.
Fantastic. So when we're talking about moving our organization towards this future where healthcare has no limits, this concept of AI literacy is at the forefront of everyone's mind today. Our leadership is looking across all of the different areas that GE Healthcare plays within and is asking some very important what if questions. Some of those questions that I'd love to share with you guys today is when we're really starting and ending with our patient in mind. It's what if AI could be leveraged to deliver this higher quality of care for our patients. We need to basically be able to help drive faster and highly accurate quality of care and speed to diagnosis so that all of the patients that rely day in and day out on our products can return very quickly to the lives that they love without further interruption. They're looking specifically across our broad product portfolio, and they're asking the important question of what if we can leverage the transformational power of AI within our products? And I'm so proud to be working for a company that is leading the pack in terms of the number of FDA cleared AI integrated products within our portfolio. It allows our scanners to be highly accurate in detecting cancer and recommending treatment that is scalable and personalized for our patients. And what else is it doing? It's also helping to help reduce the bottlenecks within healthcare clinics, making our scanners like MRI far more efficient and run more quickly and reproduce these images at a much faster rate of speed. When it comes to our providers, the question they're asking is, what if we can provide these AI-powered enterprise digital solutions that really help alleviate all of the pain being felt by nurses, clinicians, radiologists out there? We know COVID had a tremendous impact, and a ton of very talented and gifted individuals felt the burnout and continue to feel the burnout. Enterprise digital, when you leverage the power of AI and the incredible amount of data that these healthcare facilities have stored, the insights are able to very quickly surface efficiencies that otherwise couldn't be realized. Then when we turn and look internally at our company, they're asking the questions about how could we reimagine the processes that we use to bring these great products to market? Taking a look at the manufacturing process, how can we leverage this data-driven analysis that AI provides to help us identify problems earlier, really drill down to root cause and directly impact that instead of going after the symptoms? And then finally, one that I'm so passionate about and my role really focuses on is what if we can leverage AI to deliver role-based efficiency and creativity boost for our people, right? bring all of the passion back to why individuals stepped into the roles that they are currently in, right? If you ask any one of us, including those of you out here today, I doubt you're going to say drafting emails, coming up with PowerPoint slides, merging to Excel documents. Those likely weren't the reasons that you got out of bed in the morning, but we know it takes up so much of our time. So when we take a look across all 5 of those key areas, at least within GE Healthcare, what we realize is that the through narrative is AI literacy can really drive massive amounts of improvement across all of these buckets. And so that's what my role was recently created for. It's how do we basically implement a program that is effective enough to bring up the overall baseline foundational understanding and AI literacy for our people across the organization. And so when you're talking GE Healthcare, that's over 53,000 employees globally. So when we look across these different business functions and teams, what we're really trying to do is influence mindset and adoption around generative AI. And how do we make sure to leverage these tools so that we can bring these amazing products to market? So I'm going to pause there. Kevin, I know you're itching to ask some questions about all of this, and I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, I'll definitely take the lead, and then other folks can raise their digital hand or chat it up. So, Kevin, what caught my eye, and I reached out, we have some mutual friends, was like this is a new role created in your organization, right? So this is a bit of a promotion into a new position for you. Is that correct?
Yes, very much so. Absolutely. The scope of the role going from supporting just our UScan commercial team, which was amazing and learned a ton about the sales process, to going and having a global audience of over 53,000. Yep, absolutely a bit more pressure. You can say that.
53,000. And then, and this gets a little wonky, but I do think words count, language counts in large organizations. So Gen AI digital, like, should this role be within what's called global leadership development, or should it just be global HR, or even, God forbid, IT, right? Like where should this sit?
It's a fantastic question. And as I continue to learn more and more about my role, regardless of me sitting currently in the global HR learning and development organization, we are leveraging our functional counterparts and their deep domain expertise on an hourly basis. So nothing is being done in a silo. Thank goodness. I'm so happy I get to play in a sandbox this diverse, but being able to pull in all of the business needs, questions, and specific desires of compliance, legal, IT, sourcing, marketing, commercial, HR, what have you, it really is a cross-functional endeavor. And we're definitely taking that tact when trying to move the needle towards AI literacy.
And tell me, now this is relatively new, right? So you're still early stages. Is it too early to know where the early wins are? So like think about everybody on this call. Now, their organization might not have anyone driving AI literacy yet, right? But they realize that, hey, all of our managers need to get fluent fast. Is there an easy win or an area or a vendor or a tool? Is there anything that they should be looking at as, okay, without big time, big budget, big projects, big teams, I can still do this? Anything come to mind?
Absolutely, for sure. We know there are a ton of different AI-based language models out there that offer like immediate feedback in terms of any sort of expertise or insights you're trying to surface around questions or use cases that you have. What we are broadly encouraging our employees to engage in is active exploration of these applications. At the end of last year, our company doubled down with Microsoft, specifically with Copilot Chat that comes with enterprise data protection. And so as soon as we were able to help educate the masses on what is allowable and what they can't do, and at the end of the day, that basically boils down to keep secrets safe and use a responsible AI framework, definitely pulling in all of those great lessons learned and best practices that Kim just spoke about. They all of a sudden start having a ton of these light bulb aha moments, applying it to all of these use cases. And that just gets a lot of people excited to be more curious, more explorative, and share what they're learning with their teams and the global organization.
Now, organizationally, you shared that sort of landed on Copilot because that's the system, at large. There's lots of interesting models out there on a personal. So now I'm asking Kevin, not GE Healthcare. Which models do you like to play with? What do you find to be most helpful to you?
Absolutely. This is such a great question. I've been a day one proponent of ChatGPT. I just continue to see them leading from the front. And the version of their tool that I leverage at least 3 hours a day is the advanced voice mode. Having these back and forth conversations to me is where this technology needs to move. Being able to just fire up ChatGPT on my phone here and have a really thorough and deep conversation back and forth, what it allows me to do is practice what I'm trying to say, allows ChatGPT to enter as either a collaborative partner and help me brainstorm new creative ideas, or to play the devil's advocate and help me identify any blind spots in the direction I'm trying to head with a specific strategy. It works very, very well also as a virtual coach. So what I love to do with ChatGPT is I'll be like, hey, you are, let's say, an expert career coach, and I need your help today immediately to help identify where I'm doing great on topic X. I'm going to go ahead and deliver the simulated conversation. I need you to take on the simulated persona of whatever it is, let's say a C-suite executive at a hospital. And I want to practice my enterprise digital selling skills. Give me a minute to try to convince you to take a meeting with our chief science and technology officer. And as soon as I say break simulation, I need you to immediately go back to your coaching mode and provide me with 3 areas where I have done really well and need to continue to lean into, and then 3 areas where I need to continue to iterate and practice. That model has really worked well for me. And now I'm trying to evangelize it and share my passion for others to explore it more broadly across our organization.
Now, Kevin, I didn't see the chat light up when you said something. I want to make sure everyone understood it. That you're talking to ChatGPT about 3 hours a day right now, right?
Yes. That's right. I think that's the only way I can realistically, with ADHD, keep on top of the pace of innovation in this space. Anytime you think you are even coming close to like having a grasp of a concept, a new model comes out or a brand new version of an existing model iterates, and all of a sudden you're almost back to square one, learning, okay, how does this now change the landscape we're playing in?
And Kevin, the other thing I wanted to point out is in the last 6 to 12 months, there have been, I don't know, easily a dozen vendors out there that said, hey, buy our AI powered tool to do simulations, how to give radical candor effective feedback, how to do this pharmaceutical sales call, how to do this other thing. So it's role play simulations, buying their tool. And you just said you're using secure, but the generic GBT or other models, and it's working well for you, just that tool. Do you think there's any advantage to these third-party tools? Or is it like, hey, our sales representatives, our customer service representatives, our leaders, if they have access to Copilot, there's a lot they can be doing right there.
Absolutely, for sure. I think that's where we're playing today. Like I said, enterprise-wide, we only have access to the Microsoft Copilot chat. So we are helping to educate how do you basically get 80% of the way there with that experience, right? It doesn't have the advanced voice mode capabilities today. Fingers crossed that comes in the very near future. But we can still simulate text-based dialogue back and forth. And that's so much more than the vast majority of our global colleagues have ever experienced in their lifetime. So that's where we're trying to get individuals and managers quite excited to explore and to try that out. I think I've seen a lot of vendor excitement in the space as well as they pull this in. I know in my previous role supporting our US and Canadian commercial sales team, we leveraged a great vendor who had AI virtual coaching capabilities that we're still using today. And what that does is it allows individuals to practice, iterate, and get immediate coaching feedback. And that, from an AI perspective, is I think where we're going to be heading. As more of the younger workforce comes into roles, this isn't going to be something they're going to be asking for. This is going to be something they're going to be very much demanding, right? Think about applications like Duolingo, where you get immediate feedback. This is exactly where all of this needs to go, regardless of if it's a core publicly facing foundation model or a cutting edge vendor-based solution.
When you say Duolingo, I think about not immediate feedback, immediate translation in my ear.
Yes.
Bypass that learning step completely. Kevin, let me ask you a question because we were talking before this, so you know this, but I typically, when I'm being a desk jockey here and I've got my 3 monitors, and one monitor I have Claude AI open, which I prefer for writing and certain writing projects. My next book I'm working on. I have ChatGPT as a thought partner, and especially if I want real-time access to the webs, a little bit of research and stuff. For a while, I was getting a lot out of Gemini, and our company, LeadX, it is on the Google platform, but I'm using that less. So I've got 3 tabs open. I don't know that I'm up to 3 hours a day, but I'm definitely leaning in. And at the same time, every time I look at a new AI usage report, I'm surprised at the bell curve that most people are not using it at all. Most people have not downloaded, right? So we're still kind of early adopters. This is kind of putting you on the spot, but any chance you could pick up your phone and talk to ChatGPT right now and ask it a question, and you can make up a coaching question or a thought partner question? I don't know if the microphone will pick it up, but could we show
Yeah,
people how that
definitely can
works?
give it a try. We're gonna be maxing out the home Wi-Fi here, but let's see. Let's give it a
Let's see
try.
what happens.
And you know what? This is cool because you have to be experimental. And you know what? If it fails, that's great because then you learn something new and then you iterate. And that's what we're
Steve
trying to advance
Jobs failed
towards.
on the main stage many a time, my friend. It never stopped Apple.
All right, let's give it a try here. Hey there, I am currently presenting live to the LeadX community, and we're learning all about how the incredible transformational power of generative AI can help us in the learning and development space, specifically when looking at leadership development programs. Can you give us 5 quick ideas for how these individuals listening today can immediately put generative AI power to work for them in role when implementing extremely powerful and effective leadership development solutions?
Hey, Kevin, sure. Here are 5 quick ideas. 1, use generative AI to create personalized learning paths for leaders. 2, generate realistic leadership scenarios for role-playing exercises. 3, design AI-driven feedback tools for instant skill assessment. 4, automate content creation for leadership training materials. And 5, use AI to analyze and predict leadership trends for proactive development planning. Each of these can make your programs more effective.
That's awesome. Appreciate putting you on the spot and you coming through.
My pleasure. If you need any more ideas or want to dive deeper, just let me know. How's the presentation going so far?
I think it's going pretty good. People seem engaged, and I hope that they are enjoying everything they're learning today.
That's great. Keeping them engaged is key. If you need any more tips.
All right, we're going to put them back in the pocket now.
Kim Lon in the chat is funny. She says, everything sounds smarter with a British accent. Yeah, I like to choose the male or female British accents for my companions. That's really funny. Kevin, what I think maybe some people were surprised at how great the response was. I think some people might have been surprised at how long your query was. Like, it just listens and you got it all out there before it started. It didn't try to interrupt you or cut you off. Tell me about why you like to speak to it rather than type to it.
That's a great question. And I'm not necessarily certain if there's like data out there to support this, but I know personally for me, I feel far less constrained, and it's more easy for me to jump from like the analytical side of my brain to more of the creative and passionate side of my brain when I'm having a conversation back and forth. Things that I hear specifically are going to trigger new ideas, and that kind of like going down the rabbit hole is what gets me so excited and why I'm maxing out my advanced voice mode limit for my pro subscription every single day. So that really is exciting. And I guess the other part of it is like, you asked about like novels you're reading. I listen to audiobooks all the time. So maybe it's an audio preference that I've got, but I think you can see just how conversational that was. And again, just reminding everyone on the line today, that's the worst version of it you're ever going to hear from this point going forward. I've been experimenting with some other tools that are out there today, and the voice quality of ones that just dropped last week put this one to shame. So we are very quickly entering a place in time where it's going to almost become indistinguishable from engaging with actual humans, right? So that gets me excited, but I'm sure there's reasons to be nervous as well.
Yeah, Kevin, that, and I'm forgetting the name of the one that dropped last week. We were playing with it at LeadX, circulating it around, but it is like that movie Her, right? I mean,
Yes.
it's so natural and conversational, and I think is going to raise just crazy issues from workplace possibilities, to personal companions and the good and bad of that. I mean, it's just, and that's today. Like, what about 5 years from now, right? It's just mind blowing.
Absolutely. Where I'm hoping this goes, right? You think about different AI agents, right? And really being limited to your own creativity. Like you have access not only to all of the world's knowledge, but like the perfect specialist that you can conjure in your imagination at any given point in time to help deliver the key insights that you need right then and there, right? So when you do that, imagine being able to basically create an entire staff of virtual assistants who know so much contextual information about not only your role but your preferences and your writing style. And then imagine having like a group chat going verbally where you're pulling insights from everyone and they're debating you and they're debating each other. I think that ultimately is where this will be in like a year or two, and that is going to be incredible, and it's going to unlock such amazing insights.
And I want to invite people to raise their digital hand if they have a question for you, Kevin. And while people are thinking of questions, another use case that I've just been blown away by is using ChatGPT or one of the others as an executive coach. It knows things you wouldn't necessarily think you know about it. So, like, I'm certified in Hogan assessment, so I can give you a 5-factor model of personality assessment and debrief your report. Or you can upload your Hogan report right into ChatGPT and say, play the role of a Hogan certified coach and summarize my results. What are my strengths? What are my potential blind spots? Give me a 5-step action plan. And I mean, I've had coaches debrief me, and it's as good or better than any of the human coaches I had. Today it is. Like, you want to, if you're not familiar with Hogan, but know your disc style, tell ChatGPT what your discs, bring the audio, the voice mode on. Tell them, hey, I'm highly conscientious. I'm a high D. I'm a high C. Dwayne is high I, and I've got to give him some tough feedback. Give me some tips. How do I, as a C, give some feedback to an I? And they're going to give you disc advice as good or better than any disc certified consultant out there. I mean, it's really crazy how quickly they've mastered the OD space in the L&D space at large.
Absolutely. That reminds me that that's kind of like a next step to using this as a simulation and coaching specialist. Is I've recommended this before, right? Okay, I want you to simulate the role of that hospital's C-suite executive again, but this time you're a high D, right? Or this time you're coming in there from a different angle. And it completely changes the way that those conversations need to go to be successful. And the last thing I'll say is when you're done with that and you get those insights, flip the script and say, okay, now I'm going to take on the role of the C-suite executive, and you're going to show me what good looks like from your perspective.
I love that. Megan, you've got your hand raised.
I do. So I threw this in the chat, but I'll ask it verbally. Coming from the healthcare space, I'm curious, it's interesting to hear that you're using ChatGPT. We're taking a pretty cautious approach in the healthcare space that I work within. How are you navigating the aspects of PHI and PII and using something like ChatGPT, even in a coaching setting where there could be the dynamic of somebody, saying something out there and there's not a lot of control over that?
Absolutely. Great question. And it needs me to further clarify that from an enterprise perspective, it's Microsoft Copilot, right? Enterprise data protection. We are not loading sensitive data. It always goes back to that keep secret safe that I mentioned before. Kevin asking before what I prefer in like my personal life. It's that we had access to leverage ChatGPT all the way up through November of last year. So that gave me a good 18 months to explore all of these use cases. So I guess right now I'm speaking from experience, but I can't broadly now evangelize, go out there, use ChatGPT and have highly specific GE healthcare conversations with, personal information from Workday or any of the sensitive IP information as well. So it's a great call out. And I'm glad you provided me the opportunity to clarify.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah. And Kevin, we heard that at some prior meetings, and I'm so old that I remember like when the internet was new though, and not saying people are being, anti-technology here on it, but you would hear, well, you know, if we give everyone internet access at work, they're just going to goof around on the internet all day, or they're going to play games. And then it was, the Amazons will never succeed because no one's ever going to trust the internet with their credit card information. Like all the stuff that we give everything to the internet, right? Like all those things went away. And I feel that companies, because they're companies, they're risk adverse, right? They're supposed to be. And so right now, their first question is, nobody touch AI because you're going to upload all our secret information and the world will now know it, which could happen if they just use the regular consumer versions. But it is not that expensive to go to a paid plan on any of these, and then they do not use your information in a training model. And so even what you just referenced as your paid version of ChatGPT, you're paying $20 a month, right? I mean, for this 3 hour a day conversation with a hyper intelligent companion. And so your organization, if they haven't yet, it's just a matter of time before they pick, we're going to use Microsoft, or we're going to use Google, or we're going to use whatever. And it's just going to be like having Microsoft Word, Microsoft Office. It's just going to be allowed. And I think the more we can experiment and learn and get on board now, the better.
Absolutely. I heard a great quote earlier today that kind of connects the dots of everything I'm trying to talk about here. And that's, how do you basically get everyone enrolled at an organization like GE Healthcare to a level of at least foundational AI literacy so that they can make the most of these applications. And we know this technology is transformational, and it is very much akin to when, electricity was being brought across, the United States and the world back in, like, let's say the 1920s, right? You would potentially have a household where the electrical wiring was brought right to the home, but they couldn't do anything with it, right? Because the house wasn't wired for any electrical appliances or outlets or anything like that. So that's how I picture my role here today. It's, how do I help wire the internals of our house here globally, such that we can make the most out of this technology that's now been brought right to our doorstep.
That sounds great. Sheila, you've got a question.
Well, I was thinking about the how might we, or what if we carried around ChatGPT, just like Kevin was demonstrating, to help with sustainment and behavior change. So using ChatGPT as my partner to help me focus on the things that I want to focus on after I return from a training, or help me as a leader support someone else on things they're wanting support with, to keep me reminded or keep me engaged in trying different ways to support that behavior change or sustainment.
Yeah, that's a great comment. And I think when you're looking at like the coaching side of it and maximizing the pull through and transformation of knowledge for all of these different learning events that we set up, there's a lot of room for innovation in this space. I know we're personally looking at what could an AI-based agent do in let's say, acting as a virtual coach following a training session, maybe specifically within the leadership development space. I think there's a lot of opportunity to be explorative and test those out and see, okay, maybe it doesn't get us all the way to the same experience of one of these great human-based coaches that we know there's so many great vendors out there for. But what if it gets us like a decent amount of the way there, right? If you look at how quickly you could scale that up within an organization, you don't have to get to 100% to give capabilities and maximize pull through and stickiness of content. Let's look at agents and see what they can do for us.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Sheila, because last month, we had Claire Coltzman talking about her peer coaching program. And part of it is, getting people to sign up, or people come out. And look, if you've got a great human peer coach, we've always said, if you've got a great human coach, that's the way to go. If you don't have access to a great human coach, the AI coaches can do a lot now. And especially if their role is really for that reinforcement, that synthesis, that application post-program. Hey, once a week, have a chat with your AI coach about giving feedback or your self-awareness, et cetera, and maybe even report back what you got out of that conversation, as an easy, scalable way. to get that application. LaDonna, yeah, you had a question.
I do. Thank you so much. So Kevin, you shared that you were rolling out education to your organization on how to utilize AI better. Can you share kind of how you did that at all the different levels of your organization, from your top executives to your shop floors or whatever that level is?
Exactly. I wish I had a crystal ball to see how the things were beginning to prop up will ultimately play out across the organization. But these are the questions that are definitely being asked here in my 6th week in the role. So what it is specifically that we're looking to do is to basically maximize the power of seeing all of this demonstrated live, to get people at least curious and interested. I'm amazed, but also not, when I jump on these, global functional calls, and maybe I'm talking to 100 or 150 folks within like the human resources organization or the commercial space. And I ask right at the kickoff of the call, go out to chat and let me know, how many hours on average are you leveraging these tools? And right now, those numbers definitely skew much closer to 0 than maybe I had hoped for. So I think that's also exciting, because it shows us the baseline that we're working with. A lot of people might have only heard about this, or maybe they tested this technology out when it was in a more infantile state, which in this timeline was maybe like 3 months ago. And the results that they got weren't impressive to them. And since then, they just write it off in perpetuity. They're like, okay, this is never going to get to where I needed to get. And what we need to continue to encourage is, you can't look at the chapter you're on. You always have to stay 2 to 3 chapters ahead, right? These are problems that are very much going to be solved, and they're going to be solved exponentially fast. So that's what we're looking to do. Let's first get these tools in front of them, show how leaders are using them, show how line managers are using them, and then really start to celebrate the use cases and the creativity amongst all of our people, to show like, these are all the creative ways that these individuals are thinking of leveraging Microsoft Copilot going forward. So that's definitely the approach that we're going to be taking, but we are envisioning resources that can help support that. Interactive prompt libraries, where you're not only providing them with these highly robust and customizable starter prompts, but you also have tutorial videos that go right alongside of them. So if they're audio visual and they want to like sit over my shoulder here and watch for 10 to 15 minutes as I demonstrate customizing and using these and all of the amazing output that it can create, like that's really starting to create these aha moments across our organization, even in the pilot testing that's been taking place over the last 1 to 2 weeks.
I want to let everyone know, because we've been having a great conversation with Kim and now Kevin, we are not going to do the breakout today. We're going to keep the chat going a little bit, do our top 5, and go into the weekend on a strong note. And we'll do that, make sure we get that breakout in next month's session. Kevin, let me go a little futuristic. And I don't want to end on a down note on the AI stuff, but we're talking about incredibly powerful technology. There's something out there that a team has put together what they call humanity's last stand, basically an assessment that AIs to see if they can solve all these problems. And it's only at like 16%, but 3 months ago was at 8%, right? So within months, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, all of these models are going to be smarter than the smartest human on the planet. So all of us will have access to, in whatever field, to the smartest human for what, $20 a month in the palm of our hand. And so certainly that makes me feel great when I think like, wow, I can have the world's smartest doctors in the palm of my hand. I could have the world's greatest literary teachers and tutors in the palm of my hand. I get a little scared if I think about the world's best hackers as an example. We won't even go there. But what happens in the workplace? The thing that when people say they're scared of AI and robots, I don't hear that they're scared that they're really going to be Skynet and like blow us all up. Like maybe a little bit, but really what they're talking about is, okay, we see the art that AI is creating. We see the legal documents, the scientific breakthroughs, the analysis. Like, whose job is safe? What happens 5, 10, 15 years from now to the workforce? What do you think?
It's a great question, and one I ponder with day in and day out. I think it's safe to say that this is going to be transformational to the degree that each and every position out there across every single industry is going to be impacted in some way, shape, or form. What I'm trying to do is get ahead of that for the majority of people and letting them know that today is the perfect day to start your AI upskilling journey. Don't allow fear or hesitation to get in your way. Just jump in and explore. You don't need a degree in computer science to get incredible results in the next hour. Create an account, a free account, log in, give it a try, and maybe use a personal use case, a home-based use case, helping your kids study for a cellular biology final. Not that I haven't done that recently, but definitely get curious, get explorative, and definitely always remember that it's not going to be necessarily the AI that's going to be replacing everyone in their role, but there's going to be pressure from those people who are, those forward adopters or early adopters who learn how to use these tools in their positions that are going to likely edge out those who remain adamant that they don't want to have to do anything with this technology. So I guess all we can really do at this point in time is help reduce the fear by showing them that you can do a lot of really incredible things that are highly relevant and customizable to your own unique position. But the best advice I can give is start brainstorming today about what your function, what your team, and what your role specifically is going to look like in, let's say, 1 to 2 years. And if you can do that and then walk it back, now you can start to identify some of the skills gap that you can help close. And programs like the one I'm trying to help implement at GE Healthcare are very much targeted to help individuals overcome that fear, become curious, become lifelong learners, and to continue to explore this area.
Love it. Kevin, I'm going to switch over to our top 5 plays of the month, but I want to thank first, congratulations on the role. Thanks for the work you're doing, and thanks for spending some time here with us. I have a feeling your LinkedIn connection requests are going to be quite full over the weekend. If anyone wants to connect with you on LinkedIn and keep the conversation going, I know you're open to it.
Much appreciated. Always excited for these opportunities, and you guys continue to prove that talking to real life humans still slightly edges out talking to ChatGPT.
At least for now, my friend, at least for now. All right, so let me just very quickly, because as usual, we are running at the end of our program here. These are just top 5 things that caught my eye, and hopefully they're sharing okay. And so number 5, this is from Gallup. 4 in 10 employees feel respected at work. It's actually 37%. Thought that was particularly relevant. We were talking to Kim Scott about respect and what that means. It hasn't ever really been strong, which is sad. It's even sadder that we're back to pretty much at lows. At work, I'm treated with respect. Number 4, also from Gallup, and this is near and dear to my heart of my new research, the emerging AI revolution. Emergence of AI as an everyday tool is among the most revolutionary things that happened in the past 5 years. Only 1/3 of employees say their organization is taking action. Knowing that Kevin was going to be on the program today, I wanted to show that we've got a lot of work to do. Only 1/3 are really saying overall that their company's leaning into AI. This research, also Gallup, lists 3 words that best describe what this person contributes to your life. This is about strong leadership. Gallup's doing all this research that hope is becoming the most important leadership skill. Hope. In this time crazy world we're living in, Kim says the moon just exploded, right? We need hope. Number 2 from McKinsey, The Art of 21st Century Leadership, from succession planning to building a leadership factory. How cool is that phrase? How about we all do that? We're not running leadership development. We're building a leadership factory. Who wouldn't want to invest in that? And here we see that leadership teams need positive energy, positive balance, and inspiration. It's back to that hope thing. Finally, number 1, McKinsey, new era of perpetual upheaval. We are living in that Banny world. Everything's incomprehensible. So what we need to do, leaders need to move from being managers, seeking incremental improvements, to becoming visionaries, purpose, imagination, and pursue the future. So we need to all lean into our inspirational ways. Speaking of inspiration, Dwayne, send us out on a high note to a great weekend.
Sure, I would say as we all navigate our personal lives, our lives in the world, and also our lives at work, something to be mindful of is we're all hit with these different conflicting ideas and thoughts and tension. Work on changing the mindset, not the problem. And one way to do that is meeting people where they are. Seek to truly understand what is the pain that's coming out of their mouths and make them feel that way. And then tap into that to find the commonality. So seek to understand, once again, mindset before fixing the problem.